This program is supported by SMC Global Power.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast on tonight's headlines.
President Duterte is disgusted with the actuation of the Chinese Coast Guard vessels, which blocked and fired water cannons on 2 Philippine boats transporting supplies to military personnel in Ayungin Shoal on November 16.
5 people were killed and 40 others wounded after a vehicle plowed into a Christmas parade in the U.S. state of Wisconsin on Sunday.
Over 130 people have been arrested in the Netherlands over 3 days of unrest sparked by a COVID curfew. And in Brussels on Sunday, officers fired water cannon and tear gas at a protest police said was attended by 35,000.
And from the rubble of Iraq's war-ravaged city of Mosul arises the sight of androids gliding back and forth in a restaurant to serve their amused clientele.
First, President Duterte is disgusted with the actuation of the Chinese Coast Guard vessels, which blocked and fired water cannons on 2 Philippine boats transporting supplies to military personnel in Ayungin or Second Thomas Shoal on November 16. During his attendance at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN-China Special Summit via video conference, the president said the South China Sea issue is a strategic challenge that cannot be solved by force. Take a look.
We are friends and close neighbors. Our destinies are tied to each other, and geography has made it irrevocably so. Allow me then to speak with candor. The South China Sea is a strategic challenge that cannot be solved by force. We all want to benefit from the bounties of the vital maritime domain. We agree that peace and stability are a precondition for this to happen. And we all pledge adherence to the rule of law, including the 1982 United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea. Let us then walk our talk and move forward, acta non verba, which means deeds, not words. Let us exercise utmost restraint and avoid escalation of tension. And most importantly, let us earnestly work towards the peaceful resolution of disputes in accordance with international law. We abhor the recent event in the Ayungin Shoal and view with grave concern other similar development. This does not speak well of the relations between our nations and partnership. UNCLOS and the 2016 Arbitral Award provide legal clarity for all countries that subscribe to the majesty of the law. These 2 landmark documents are beacons pointing to us a just and fair solution of our disputes. We must realize these legal tools to ensure that South China Sea remains a sea of peace, stability, and prosperity.
Now, Ayungin Shoal is part of the Kalayaan Island Group, which is an integral part of the Philippines, as well as the Philippines' exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, and over which the Philippines has sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction. It's also located about 105 nautical miles off Palawan, Philippines, well within the country's 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. The Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. earlier conveyed in the strongest terms to Chinese Ambassador Wang Shilian and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing the Philippines' outrage, condemnation, and protest of the Ayungin Shoal incident.
5 people were killed and 40 others wounded after a vehicle plowed into a Christmas parade in the U.S. state of Wisconsin on Sunday, according to police. Officials said a red SUV broke through barricades at the Christmas parade in Waukesha, a suburb of Milwaukee, just after 4:30 p.m. or 22:30 GMT, as spectators watched the annual tradition. Take a look.
Today we experienced a horrible, senseless tragedy. I walked in the parade at the beginning. I saw all the happy children sitting on the curb. I saw all the happy parents behind their children. I can still see the smiling faces. A parade is a celebration for our community. Today our community faced horror and tragedy in what should have been a community celebration.
The Waukesha Christmas Parade was taking place when a red SUV drove through the barricades westbound, heading down Main Street. The vehicle struck more than 20 individuals. Some of the individuals were children, and there were some fatalities as a result of this incident. We're no longer looking for a suspect vehicle. We do have a person of interest in custody at the moment, but this is still a very fluid investigation.
Worried for the people who are down there, first of all, and then I was thankful my kids were not with me and at home safe with their dad, and kind of hoping for the same for everybody else in hopes that no one else is injured, gravely injured.
While local law enforcement were primary responding entities, the FBI said it was providing assistance. Angelito Tenorio, who is running for Wisconsin State Treasurer, was at the parade and told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that he saw an SUV cross over, just put the pedal to the metal, and just zooming full speed along the parade route. He said, and then we heard a loud bang and just deafening cries and screams from people who are struck by the vehicle. According to bystanders and footage, the SUV sped into the parade behind a school marching band. A total of 11 adults and 12 children were taken to 6 area hospitals. Authorities said during the incident, an officer fired at the SUV in an attempt to stop it. The incident comes after a tumultuous week in the state of Wisconsin following the conclusion of the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, an American teen acquitted after fatally shooting 2 men during protests and riots against police brutality last year in Kenosha, located just 50 miles or 80 kilometers from Waukesha. Schools will not open Monday and roads will remain closed while the investigation is continuing.
Police were hunting a convicted felon who fled Atlantis International Airport after his gun accidentally discharged during a security search and sparked panic. The incident on Saturday sent dozens of passengers scurrying for cover, and it resulted in 3 injuries, none of which were caused by the discharge. The Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, said the incident occurred after a prohibited item was identified inside a passenger's baggage by an X-ray machine. As a security officer opened the compartment containing the item, the passenger lunged into the bag and grabbed a firearm, at which point it discharged. 1 person was injured in a fall in the ensuing panic, and 2 others complained of shortness of breath, according to police. Shortly after the incident, at around 1:30 p.m. local time, the airport said on Twitter that there was no active shooter and there's no danger to passengers or employees. Police gave the all clear just before 3 p.m. The loud noise sent many people ducking and running, knocking over suitcases and stanchions as they scrambled to escape, according to footage aired by CNN. A controversial Georgia law passed in 2014 allows people to carry permitted guns into airports, although not past screening checkpoints, as well as into bars, schools, and churches. Under federal law, it's illegal to carry a weapon into a TSA screening area. Passengers may travel with firearms in checked bags when they are unloaded, locked, and stored inside a hard-sided case. The weapon must additionally be declared.
Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai said she was safe and well during a video call with the International Olympic Committee chief on Sunday. The organization said that amid international concern about her well-being after her explosive claims of sexual assault. At the beginning of a 30-minute call with IOC President Thomas Bach, Peng Shuai thanked the IOC for its concern about her well-being, according to the organization in a statement. She explained that she is safe and well, living at her home in Beijing, but would like to have her privacy respected at this time. Now, the 35-year-old two-time Grand Slam doubles champion alleged earlier this month that Vice Premier Zhang Geoli, now in his 70s, forced her into sex during an on-off relationship spanning several years. A growing chorus of voices in the sports world and beyond has been demanding answers about Peng's situation. U.S. President Joe Biden's press secretary said his administration wanted China to provide independent, verifiable proof of her whereabouts. Now, Britain Foreign Office also said it was extremely concerned and urged China to release verifiable evidence, while France's foreign minister said she would be allowed to speak freely to clarify her situation. The United Nations has insisted on a fully transparent investigation into the claims made by Peng. Some of the biggest names in tennis have spoken out about the case, including Serena Williams, Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, and Naomi Osaka.
Now, ahead of the holidays, Austria shut its shops, restaurants, and festive markets today, returning to lockdown in the most dramatic COVID-19 restriction seen in Western Europe for months. As they wake up today, this morning, Austria's 8.9 million people will not be allowed to leave home except to go to work, shop for essentials, and exercise. The Alpine nation is also imposing a sweeping vaccine mandate from February 1, joining the Vatican as the only places in Europe with such a requirement. Battling a resurgent pandemic almost 2 years since COVID-19 first emerged, several countries on the continent have reintroduced curbs, often choosing to ban unvaccinated people from venues like restaurants and bars. Over the summer, then-Chancellor Sebastian Kurz had declared the pandemic over, but plateauing inoculation rates, record case numbers, and a spiraling death toll have forced the government to walk back such bold claims.
Thousands of protesters take the streets of Vienna in the wake of Austria's announcement of a lockdown to start on Monday and obligatory vaccination for all starting from next February to combat the spread of COVID-19. Europe is battling a fresh wave of infections, and several countries have tightened curbs, with Austria on Friday announcing a nationwide partial lockdown, the most dramatic restrictions in Western Europe for months. Some 35,000 came out to protest in Austria. Thousands marched in Croatia's capital, Zagreb, and there were smaller rallies in the Netherlands. From Monday, 8.9 million Austrians will not be allowed to leave home except to go to work, shop for essentials, and exercise. The restrictions will initially last 20 days, with an evaluation after 10 days. Vaccination against COVID-19 in the Alpine nation will be mandatory from February 1st next year.
Elsewhere in Europe, as infections soar and anti-COVID measures get stricter, frustrations have also erupted into demonstrations, with some marred by clashes with police. Over 130 people have been arrested in the Netherlands over 3 days of unrest sparked by a COVID curfew, and in Brussels on Sunday, officers fired water cannon and tear gas at a protest police said was attended by 35,000. The latest protests were, however, less intense than the violence that rocked Rotterdam on Friday and The Hague on Saturday. The Netherlands went back into partial lockdown on November 13 and is considering the so-called 2G measures, allowing bars and cafes to ban people who have not been vaccinated. Sunday's unrest came after 2 days of violence in the Netherlands, which experienced its worst riots in 40 years earlier this year over a curfew. Police in The Hague said they had arrested 19 people over the protest on Saturday, during which riot police, dogs, horses and water cannon were deployed. Demonstrators threw fireworks and stones at police and set fire to bicycles and an electric moped pile in the middle of a busy intersection. 5 police officers were injured. Some blamed the riots on frustrated youths.
Elite police and counter-terrorism officers arrived on the French Caribbean island Guadeloupe on Sunday, local officials said, to help quell a week of unrest sparked by measures to curb COVID-19. Protests in the French overseas territory of roughly 400,000 people broke out after an announcement that coronavirus jabs would be mandatory for all healthcare workers, with the demonstrations marred by clashes and looting. Overnight, Sunday, police arrested 38 people after curfew violators looted and torched shops and pharmacies, and 2 security forces were injured. The police reinforcements began dismantling protesters' road barricades shortly after their arrival, according to Colonel Jean-Pierre from the Gendarmerie in Pointe-à-Pitre in the island's main city. The barricades had impeded traffic, forcing the closure of schools on Guadeloupe's main island on Monday, according to the Education Ministry. The Guadeloupe Prefecture said protesters have fired on security forces and firefighters, adding that organized gangs were now also involved in the unrest.
Still in Europe, thousands of Croatians took to the streets in the capital Zagreb in the biggest gathering in the country against mandatory vaccine certificates and health measures since the beginning of the pandemic. Take a look. Demonstrators carried banners that read, "We are free" and "Freedom of choice," and shouted insults against country's authorities. Earlier this month, Croatian authorities introduced more restrictive measures to fight the record surge of infections, combined with some of Europe's lowest inoculation rates, making it obligatory for public sector employees and people visiting public institutions to have vaccine certificates. On Saturday, Croatia recorded over 5,600 new cases and 65 deaths, and only around 45% of the country's 4.2 million people have been fully vaccinated, according to AFP data.
To the Philippines now, an additional 426 cases of the highly transmissible and dominant Delta variant of the coronavirus have been recorded nationwide, according to a health official. In an online media forum, the Department of Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said the new Delta variant cases were from a total of 506 samples collected in March, April, September, October, and November, and sequenced on November 20th. Take a look.
A gradual increase in the proportion of variants of concern with respect to the total sample sequence has been seen at the national level since the detection of the first local alpha and beta variant cases. Variant of concern cases only accounted for 24.8% of the samples collected in the month of February. In March, however, variant of concern cases comprised already of 82.3% of the total samples. The increase has been consistent for the succeeding months. At present, for samples collected in October, variant of concern cases now comprised of 99.3%, and all 107 samples with collection dates in November tested positive for the Delta variant.
The latest sequencing brought the number of total sequenced samples with assigned lineages to 18,383 as of November 21st.
Staying in the country, the Department of Health started giving COVID-19 boosters or additional doses to seniors and persons with comorbidities starting today. And this followed the administration of booster doses to healthcare workers, which started on November 17. Take a look.
Kapag lalo na kung ikaw ay senior, kaya nga ngayon, booster natin ng mga seniors. Kasi nga, pagka naramdaman na nila, huli na ang panahon. Baka nasa ICU na sila or ICU no more.
Meron kaming gagawing command conference ngayon, command conference ngayong 1 o'clock. Ngayon namin titignan ngayon yung lahat ng mga preparations natin sa National Vaccination Day. And then again, another final meeting on November 25. So updated lagi yung LGU natin. And every morning si Sec Vince kasama yung si Yusek Mirna ay lahat ng mga LGUs, including mga municipalities. Meron kaming daily meeting yan. So updated lagi tayo.
Now, according to the DOH, those given Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Moderna as primary doses, as first and second vaccine doses, should be given a booster at least 6 months after the second primary dose. Homologous boosters can be used, meaning the same vaccine brand or type will be administered. In case of heterologous boosters, those who receive Sinovac primary doses can receive any of these 3 vaccines as a booster shot: AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Moderna. And those who received AstraZeneca as first and second dose could receive either Pfizer or Moderna as heterologous booster dose. Meanwhile, individuals who received the Gamaleya Sputnik as first and second dose or primary doses can receive any of these 3 vaccines as booster dose: AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Moderna. And this would be administered 6 months after the primary dose. A homologous booster for Sputnik is not yet for implementation.
Australia announced on Monday it will reopen to foreign students and skilled workers from next month, easing some of the world's most stringent pandemic travel restrictions. 20 months after Australia slammed shut its borders, some visa holders, as well as Japanese and South Korean citizens, will be able to enter from December 1st. Watch this.
It's another win for Australians who have got vaccinated. It's another win for Australians who want to see Australia to return to some form of the normality that we once knew pre this pandemic. The steps we are taking today are about securing our economic recovery. From the 1st of December 2021, fully vaccinated eligible visa holders will be able to come to Australia without needing to apply for a travel exemption. Eligible visa holders, including skilled and student cohorts, as well as humanitarian temporary working holiday maker and provisional family visa holidays. In addition to the introduction of the travel from Singapore, which only started on the 21st, from the 1st of December 2021, Australia will also welcome back fully vaccinated citizens from Japan and Korea. Under these arrangements, citizens of Japan and Korea who hold a valid Australian visa will be able to travel from their home country quarantine-free to participate in that program where states and territories are providing that opportunity without needing to seek a travel exemption.
There is no word yet on when leisure travelers may be able to return to Australia, a blow to the equally hard-hit tourism sector, which has seen visitor numbers virtually evaporate since borders were closed in March 2020. The government of Prime Minister Scott Morrison lifted restrictions on Australians traveling overseas last month, sparking a flood of travel bookings for the Southern Hemisphere summer. But Morrison, who is hoping to be re-elected next year, had pointedly refused to relax travel rules for most non-Australians. That decision left an estimated 1.4 million skilled visa holders stuck in Australia, unable to return if they decided to leave. Business groups had lobbied hard for vaccinated visa holders to be allowed to return as they struggled to fill jobs and gird for the beginning of a third year of restrictions.
Meanwhile, New Zealand will end a 3.5-month lockdown in the country's largest city, Auckland, early next month as it adopts a new coronavirus control strategy, according to Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern today. Let's listen in.
The hard truth is that Delta is here and it is not going away. And while no country to date has been able to eliminate Delta completely once it's arrived, New Zealand is better positioned than most to tackle it. The Cabinet has decided today that the whole country will move into the new traffic light system at 11:59 p.m. on Thursday the 2nd of December, making Friday the 3rd of December the first day that the traffic light system will be operationalised. That is 11 days from now, and it's important everyone gets prepared. You'll know that we've been long signalling that after the 29th of November meeting that it would be soon after that the country would shift. This date provides the ability for businesses in particular to now plan.
Ardern's coronavirus response until now has strived for COVID-0 elimination with strict lockdowns, rigorous contact tracing, and tight border controls. While it has resulted in just 40 deaths in a population of 5 million, pressure had been building to end a lockdown in Auckland, imposed in mid-August when Delta was first detected. Under the new 3-tier traffic light system, green has almost no virus controls, while red means businesses can remain open, but customers must be vaccinated and observe social distancing. Auckland is currently sealed off from the rest of New Zealand, with roadblocks due to be removed on December 15. Stringent quarantine rules for international arrivals will remain in place, but the Prime Minister has committed to easing them early next year.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he had a 3rd dose of a COVID vaccine as the country struggles with a fresh wave of the virus.
И сегодня вот по вашей рекомендации, по рекомендации ваших коллег, я сделал себе еще одну прививку спутником Лайт. Это уже называется ревакцинация. Что касается безболезненности, то вот 2 часа назад я сделал, я ничего не чувствую. Нормальное состояние, все нормально. А наших людей, наших граждан с вашим...
Even though Russia has several vaccines that it has manufactured itself, only 36.7% of the population is fully vaccinated, according to the GoGov website, which tracks the data. Putin, who says he opposes universal mandatory vaccination, has nevertheless backed measures taken in some regions for certain categories of people. Thus, in June, the authorities in the capital, Moscow, said vaccination would be obligatory for anyone working in the service sector. Russia has to date officially recorded more than 9.3 cases of COVID and just over 264,000 deaths, which makes it the worst-hit country in Europe.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. mailalabas natin ang angking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Welcome back to Europe now. Poland's Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki says the crisis on its border with Belarus is not an artificial conflict and that Minsk is attempting to breach the eastern borders of NATO and the EU. Morawiecki was speaking in Lithuania. Let's listen in.
Działania przeciwko Unii Europejskiej i warto zdać sobie sprawę z tego, że to nie jest konflikt tylko z Polską, to nie jest konflikt sztucznie wywołany z Litwą, ale to jest próba naruszenia granicy wschodniej NATO i próba naruszenia granicy wschodniej Unii Europejskiej. My dzisiaj już wiemy z całą pewnością, że te ruchy, które odbywają się na granicy...
The Polish Prime Minister called the migrant crisis on the Belarusian-Polish border, the EU's eastern frontier, the greatest attempt to destabilize Europe since the Cold War. The West accuses Belarus of creating the crisis by bringing in would-be migrants, mostly from the Middle East, and taking them to the border, with promises of an easy crossing into the European Union. And Belarus has denied the claim, instead criticizing the EU for not taking in the migrants. Caught in the middle, migrants often report being forced to cross the border by Belarusian officials, then pushed back into Belarus by Polish authorities. Lukashenko told the BBC earlier that it was absolutely possible his forces had helped people cross into the EU but denied orchestrating the operation. The migrants, many desperately fleeing war and poverty in the Middle East, have spent thousands to fly into Belarus on tourist visas, determined to reach the European Union. Once at the border, they are faced with squalid, freezing conditions. Polish media say at least 11 migrants have died since the crisis began over the summer.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko says that the European Union is refusing to discuss the fate of 2,000 migrants wishing to go to Europe and stranded in Belarus. Let's listen in.
Когда Евросоюз ответит на вопрос по 2000 беженцев. У нас же в этом лагере около 2000 беженцев, которые... Я их просил, чтобы они их забрали. Они сказали, Меркель мне пообещал на уровне Евросоюза рассмотрит эту проблему. Так не рассматривают даже. И даже то, что она мне пообещала, решено было в Евросоюзе, контактные лица, они на контакт даже не выходят.
The West accuses Belarus of bringing in would-be migrants, mostly from the Middle East, and taking them to areas along its borders with EU members, Poland and Lithuania, with promises of an easy crossing. Belarus claims or denies the claim, instead criticizing the EU for not taking in the migrants. On Friday, the Council of Europe Human Rights Commissioner Dunja Mijatovic called the humanitarian situation alarming and demanded an immediate end to Poland's controversial returns of migrants to Belarus. The migrants have abandoned everything in their countries, spending thousands of dollars to fly into Belarus on tourist visas, determined to reach the EU.
Now, nearly a month after Sudan's top general ousted the prime minister, they signed a breakthrough deal to reverse the military takeover that had sparked international condemnation and mass protests. Take a look.
فتاح البرهان السادة أعضاء مجلس السيادة.
هذا الاتفاق يساعد على فك الاختناق. نتمنى فك الاختناق الداخلي والخارجي ونستعيد مسار الانتقال لتحقيق ديمقراطية مستدامة في بلدنا.
الحقيقة الاتفاق أو الإطار الظهر الآن قبل ساعات في الأخبار، نعتقد أنه اتفاق لا يمثل الشعب السوداني بأي حال من الأحوال، ولا يمثل الدماء الطاهرة التي سالت على أرض هذا الوطن منذ 89 وإلى الآن.
Papua New Guinea promotes vaccination rollout awareness. We have Echo Hortaleza Quinola, our EBC correspondent there in Papua New Guinea, with a story.
The surging COVID-19 and Delta variant cases in Papua New Guinea have turned the country upside down and impacted the residents and leaders' entity and made changes to the way they work, respond to challenges, and how they reflect their values and their beliefs. In a media conference held at the National Capital District City Hall, Honorable Powes Parkop, along with the medical team, church leaders, councils, affiliates, and the National Pandemic Deputy Controller partnered with the government to run the coronavirus vaccination program awareness and dispel the myth and misinformation circulating about the vaccination rollout. Governor Parkop said that the government is not forcing the public to get the vaccine, but they are encouraging adults to be jabbed because COVID is real and it kills. Churches have the obligation and moral duty to advise and to advocate good health to the public. Moving together with the medical team and promoting vaccination rollout is a national perspective. National Pandemic Deputy Controller Dr. Danny Isoram asked the public to stop believing in this baseless fake news.
But in PNG, we also have to deal with another pandemic, and that pandemic is called infodemic, which is, I believe, undoing or drilling some of the good work that we've done to educate our people, and infodemic is one of the things that we are currently dealing with, and hence the partnership with the churches, because in Papua New Guinea, the churches play an important role.
Though having a hard time in urging the people to comply, they are still unstoppable in spreading vaccination rollout. Dr. Isoram said that best opportunity to be vaccinated is when you are well and not when you are about to die or when you are on your deathbed. Dr. Osorum also announced to the public that they are working on to start giving boosters for the children to spare them from possible COVID-19 infections.
We are having a challenge with the compliance. Compliance is a very important challenge for us. And hence we have, those relationship with other partners and stakeholders to make sure that people comply. And if they don't comply, another option is to take the vaccine. Our problem in PNG is not having a shortage of vaccine. It's actually having a shortage of people to come forward to be vaccinated, to make an informed decision as to whether to vaccinate our kids first below 18 years, and then we can select whichever group of children, adolescents and children we need to vaccinate. So the critical thing is that we need to know how many kids are being infected, because they are the same risk as adults also. Apart from that, we also need to make a decision on whether to start giving boosters. So two critical outstanding questions now is when to get boosters and when to start vaccinating our kids. Our primary focus now is to vaccinate the adult population.
Papua New Guinea Council of Churches will be working with the National Capital District, National Control Center, World Health Organization, and UNICEF in rolling out vaccination awareness to the country. Reporting from Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, this is Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Afghanistan's Taliban authorities on Sunday issued a new religious guideline that called on the country's television channels to stop showing dramas and soap operas featuring women actors. In the first such directive to Afghan media issued by the Ministry for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice, the Taliban also called on women television journalists to wear Islamic hijabs while presenting their reports. And the ministry asked the channels not to air films or programs in which their Prophet Muhammad or other revered figures are shown. It also called for banning films or programs that were against Islamic and Afghan values. These are not rules, but a religious guideline, according to their ministry spokesman, Hakif Mohajir. During the past 20 years, Afghan television channels offered a wide range of programs, from an American Idol-style singing competition to music videos, along with several Turkish and Indian soap operas.
Eagle News will be back with more stories. Please don't go away.
Sama-sama tayong maging happy everyday. Lukoyin mo na lahat, wag lang yung bagong gising.
Ma, anong oras kita gigising?
Kulang eh. Your daily afternoon habit of tawanan. Totoo bang pag mahina pandinig, pogi?
Kuya, nandito na order mo.
Ha? Ako ba kausap mo?
Yo, it's bullshit.
Tapos sa ating game of the day, lulubog o lulutang ba ang itlog ng manok? What is Nakaball Videos?
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. Motorists will get another sigh of relief as oil firms will implement a big-time cut in pump prices this week. In his separate advisories, Caltex, Clean Fuel, Petrogas, and Sea Oil said they will cut gasoline prices by 0.85 or 85 centavos per liter and diesel by 1.20 per liter. According to Sea Oil, the minimal price rollback on its gasoline product is due to an increase increase in import premiums related to freight and refining. Meanwhile, Caltex and Sea Oil will also reduce the prices of kerosene by 1.30 pesos per liter, as other industry players are expected to follow suit. The oil price rollback will be effective starting at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow. Gasoline prices have been declining for 3 weeks in a row, while diesel and kerosene prices were down for 4 consecutive weeks.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Britain will make electric car chargers compulsory for new buildings in England as it switches away from high-polluting vehicles at a press conference for the annual gathering of the Confederation of Business Industry, or CBI, in London. Take a look.
Just about has come, hasn't it? UK sales of EVs are now increasing at 70% a year. And in 2030, we're ending the market for new hydrocarbon ICEs, internal combustion engine vehicles, ahead of other European countries. And we're regulating so as to require new homes and buildings to have EV charging points, with another 145,000 charging points to be installed thanks to these regulations. We're investing in new projects. And as the world reaches this pivotal moment post-Glasgow, it's vital that we recognise not just the scale of the challenge, but the opportunity now for British business and industry. Because in the end, it is you, it is business people who will fix this problem. Governments don't innovate. So we're investing not just in big nuclear power plants, but in small nuclear reactors as well. And we're consulting on classifying this essential technology as green investment so that we can get more investment flowing in and ahead of the EU. Lenin.
Some pre-submitted questions, which I'll...
The new legislation will create 145,000 new charging points per year and apply also to major renovation projects. The Prime Minister wants Britain to lead global efforts to transition to net zero in order to help the economy recover from the pandemic fallout. There are currently about 25,000 charging points in Britain. However, the Competition and Markets Authority regulator estimates that more than 10 times this amount will be needed by 2030.
Asian markets were mixed today, with fears about renewed containment measures to battle a surge in European COVID cases, adding to growing speculation that central banks will have to tighten monetary policy quicker to tame a spike in inflation. Oil extended losses as major consumers, including the United States, considered releasing some of their reserves to keep a lid on prices, which have been a key reason for the jump in inflation this year. While the Nasdaq ended at a new record above 16,000 for the first time Friday, the S&P 500, Dow, and European markets provided a negative lead after Austria said it would reintroduce lockdowns and make vaccination mandatory from February to fight a worrying jump in new infections. The new announcements added to the downbeat mood on trading floors, with investors expecting central banks to continue winding back the ultra-loose monetary policies put in place at the start of the pandemic and which have been crucial to the global recovery. Tokyo, Singapore, Seoul, Manila, and Bangkok rose, but Hong Kong, Sydney, Wellington, Taipei, and Mumbai edged down. Shanghai rose as analysts speculate that the Central People's Bank of China could unveil some easing measures to kickstart growth in the world's number 2 economy, despite a surge in prices in the country.
Meanwhile, European equities rose today in opening deals despite Austria's return to lockdown as the region raced to curb soaring COVID infections. In initial trade, London's benchmark FTSE 100 index gained 0.3% to 7,251.06 points compared with the closing level on Friday. In the Eurozone, Frankfurt's DAX index added 0.2% to 16,186.81 points, and the Paris CAC 40 won 0.3% to 7,131.23. The three key indices had, however, slumped Friday after Austria announced its new partial lockdown. Austria closed shops, restaurants, and festive markets today in the most dramatic COVID restriction seen in Western Europe for months. Elsewhere in Europe, as infections soar and anti-COVID measures get stricter, frustrations have also erupted into demonstrations, with some marred by clashes with police.
Russians looking to indulge in their traditional winter holiday treat of red caviar will be disappointed this year, as prices have hit historic highs, according to official figures yesterday. With Russia battling surging inflation, state statistics agency Rosstat said the market price for 1 kilogram of red fish roe has surpassed the 5,000 ruble mark, now the highest price since monitoring began in 2000. Caviar with butter on bread or pancakes is typically served for dinner on New Year's Eve, Russia's biggest annual holiday. Over the course of the last 2 decades, the price of caviar at the end of the year has increased by 7 times. Prices jumped this year contrary to expectations and despite an increase in salmon fishing, most of which is carried out on the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia's Far East.
From the rubble of Iraq's war-ravaged city of Mosul arises the sight of androids gliding back and forth in a restaurant to serve their amused clientele. Take a look.
فترة كورونا يعني هاي الفكرة حاولنا نطلع على العالم، تعرف هاي الفترة كانت بيها كثير نحن بس قاعدين على التواصل الاجتماعي، التنقل كان مقطوع، فحاولنا ننقل افكار يعني نخطف افكار من حول العالم والحمد لله قدرنا ننفذها وقدرنا نورد هاي الاجهزة ونسوي هذا المشروع.
The futuristic servers are the result of technology developed in the northern city, erstwhile stronghold of the Islamic State jihadist group occupied by ISIS between 2014 and 2017. The northern metropolis of Mosul still bears the scars of war. But at dinner time, patrons of the restaurant that is packed every night can escape from the city on a voyage through space. An astronaut floating across the mural wall sets the scene, and views of the Earth and other planets as seen from the space give customers the sense of peering out through the portholes of a spaceship.
Now, a drone show lights up the sky in Doha as Qatar marks 1 year to go until the 2022 World Cup. The countdown ceremony was held amid ongoing criticisms over Qatar's human rights record. Watch this.
And finally, in our news, Kiwi Mark Jacobs celebrated his 32nd birthday in style when he beat 3-time champion Kevin Langeray and rookie Stig Hofnagel in an action-packed final to secure the Red Bull King of the Air 2021 title in Cape Town, South Africa. Take a look.
This time, I finally got in the finals and I managed to pull out the win. So beyond stoked, it was my goal to win. And just beyond stoked that I managed to achieve my dream. It's been a long dream of mine. I've dedicated my life to this the last 3 years. It's just learning over the years. I've competed on Freestyle World Tour. I've been Vice World Champion before. I know what it takes. And I'm just at an age now where I just learned to control my mental game. I'm really strong in the head now, and I know what I need to do, and I know what I need to focus on.
Looks really
That
fun.
was fun.
Exciting.
Yeah, I wish we can do it too. That'll be more fun.
Yeah.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. The week is just starting. I am CJ Hero, and we will be back tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
This program is supported by SMC Global Power,